books thinking, oh gosh, she's not taking care of that book, you know. And she had all yellow tags all inside, and she stood and she said, Professor Sanchez, she said, I have been sharing this book with everyone I've been reading. She said, I want you to know my history. She didn't say history, I said history, my history, she said, but you got to be history people, okay? I want to share my history. She said, my parents sent me to a private kindergarten, a nursery school, you know, a private elementary school, right? A private high school, and a private college. They spent a lot of money on me. She said, no, in all that time, no one ever spoke to me in a negative way. She said, no whites ever. I was at all the little houses, you know, the sleepovers, whatever. She said, so when Ferguson happened, I didn't understand it. That's what she said. Now, some people go, oh, wow, 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 wow. No, you don't. You listen. You know, you listen. She said, but I got this book. She said, I had this book. I had this book. And I began to read how you poets and you writers responded to what was going on in America. And it made me truly understand. You got to hear that, you know, how to move, that you actively organize at some point, because I'm sure it had to have been worse for you also too. I said, you know, that's debatable, but it was bad. And students always say, oh, Professor Sanchez, I wish I'd been back there with you. I said, what do you mean? Oh, you people just did all that stuff. I said, yeah, right, you know, and we paid the price for it too. When I stood up and talked about the Vietnam War, and said I was against it, you know, people booed. I mean, people booed. People booed. It's not me, you know. People stood up and said, you know, you're anti-American. I said, no, 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 no. I held my own because my grandmother used to hold her own in that church there in Alabama, you know. And those sisters held their own, and they had to do things in different ways. And I wanted to cry. I wanted to shrink. I wanted to get off, and I stood up. I stood tall in her memory. We make the memory of those people, the good things they do, not the crazy things they did, but the memory of good things that they did. And I stood up and I said, yeah, I did come out against that war. And you need to come out against that war too. You know, that is an unjust war right there. You know, you need to come out against that war. And one of the students said, well, you know, do you always do that? I said, let me give you one example. And maybe when my father was interviewed by some people from Germany about, was your daughter always like this? And my father said, I don't know what happened to her. She was quiet all the time. And I was. All I did was read and go to school. I honestly, no one believes that when I say that. Even my children don't believe that, you know, but it's true. But there were indications, like, you know, I had a sister who was so beautiful that she walked into a room and people would just, you know, men would just like, get up. If they had even had a cane, they'd get up, you know. And said, you sit here. I walked in behind her and they said, how you doing? How you doing, Sonia, whatever. That's not, I mean, she was really, I mean, that was my sister, you know. And at some point I said, so my stepmother would comb my sister's hair. I was in China and I saw a woman who looked just like my sister, you know, with the bangs, the straight bangs, the straight hair, the slanted eyes, the yellow skin, whatever. And I said, hi, Pat, you know, she was right there. And she would get her hair combed first, but my hair took a little more effort, so I was last. But the group was Grace, Sylvia, you know, Maria, and Pat. They were the beauties, you know, they would go out, but they couldn't go any place without me. See, my father, I was the tag, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they couldn't go. I was the one that told them to come when it was time to come home. When they went to parties, I would say it's 12 o'clock. They hated me with a vengeance, whatever. And I kept saying, I don't want to go. I had to go. And so my stepmother said, now wait for Sonia at the mini park. And I did my head, I went running out. I went to the mini park. They were not there. Then I went to Amsterdam Avenue where all the brothers would play basketball. That's where the girls would hang out, right? They were not there. Then I went to Riverside Drive down by the river because they went to the Hudson River. They were not there. By the time I got back up to 147th Street, I had cousins, you know, who lived there. And I went inside and I was so hot and sweaty they gave me some lemonade. And these cousins had one room, whoa, a library, nothing but books. And so I went in with the lemonade, and I pulled some books, started to read, went to sleep. And the next thing I knew was about 7 o'clock. And someone came in and said, oh, Sonia, are you still here? And I got up and I ran all the way home. As I turned the corner of 151st Street, there was Grace, Maria, you know, Pat, Sylvia. Said, ooh, you're going to get it. Dad's been looking for you for, I said, yeah, but I went looking for you. They said, oh, we were there in the mini park. And I said, you're lying. I told my father never hit me at all, but he told my stepmother, go give her a little spanking to tell her how worried. But my stepmother was not, this one rather, was not a cool person. So she would take a little brush, she hit you once, if you would, she'd stop. So she had the brush, she got ready to hit me, and I said, you know what? I said, they were lying. I said, so if you hit me, this would be an unjust spanking. And I tell you, I will not cry. Well, you cannot tell someone's going to spank you that, right? So she hit me once, and I said, this is an unjust spanking. I will not cry. Well, she kept hitting and hitting until finally she stopped. She got tired. And I said, what I have learned from this is me. I mean, this is I, saying to her that I should become a liar, just like Sylvia and Grace, whatever. But everyone was so upset with me, but I did. I understood fully what that meant at some point. My father told that story. He said, and we should have recognized that there's something there innate in her, that if it's unjust, she's going to take a different line. And that's what I hope that young sister who held that book, and she hugged me, she said, and this is for you, this is my Bible, she said. She said, because what it does is that it teaches me that you cannot sit back and not involve yourself with change, And that's all of us, if you truly understand what I'm saying. We can be comfortable wherever we are, and think. But the point is that we've got to understand that all of those young black men who are being killed, that is not by chance, I grew up in Harlem, and it was happening then. It happened in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s to 2000 all the way. That is very real business, whatever. And what we must understand at some point is that we can't separate ourselves. And I love seeing the young people, black, white, green, purple, blue out there, saying, I can't breathe, but the point is that if we don't do something, we all won't be able to breathe. You got to hear that, period. Right?